Hey up and welcome to this video. And like many people, I use Google Earth to do lots of research to find locations to take images. And recently I found this location which I wanted to go and photograph. And I just love the S-bend of the river as it curved round and led its way up to an old railway viaduct. So yeah, if only this could fly. Well, I could buy a big expensive quadcopter and other technical additions to make that happen, but there's a simpler way, and that's to use this. So I bought this, the DJI Mini 2 drone, to primarily take video footage. However, it can take still images. So I decided at this location I would use the DJI Mini 2 to take still images. The problem with this location was that the area around the subject I wanted to photograph was very flat, so I couldn't get an elevated view, as you can see on Google Earth. So the only way to get this shot would be via the drone. Okay, on to camera settings then. So if you go into the menu, the options, and select JPEG and RAW, because we want to use the RAW file to process this image. Just below there, you've also got the option of 16:9 or 4:3. Now 4:3 allegedly uses the whole of the sensor when it takes the image, and 16:9 crops it out a little. Now comparing the two, I didn't find much difference, so for this image I left it on 16:9. Okay, this next option is really useful. AEB So if you go into the menu, you'll see it's set for single shot. Change that to AEB, and then when you press the shutter on the drone, it'll take 3 shots for you. 1 underexposed, 1 overexposed, and then a shot that it thinks is the correct exposure for that scene. Now, this is really useful if you're taking sunrises or sunsets where there's lots of high dynamic range, so lots of bright areas and lots of dark areas. You can merge these 3 images together in Lightroom or in Photoshop to make an HDR image and then edit that. In this instance, this scene was quite balanced. It was very gentle sunlight coming across the scene, so I only needed to use 1 image. So we now had the raw file, which was 17 megabytes in size. So we opened this up in Adobe Camera Raw, and we right-clicked on the image into the super resolution mode, and we was going to up the resolution with this image. And you can see on the screen, if we click on this, the difference it's going to make to the image, and it starts to bring out some detail. This now gives us an enhanced image, and it's 137 megabyte now image that we're going to load into Lightroom and start to edit. So we can see this image now is very flat. There's very little colour and very little contrast with this raw file, and this is a DNG file still, and there's plenty, because of the size of the image, there's plenty of changes that we can make. So I've increased the contrast there, I've reduced the highlights a little, and I like to sharpen very early when I'm processing images. So I've applied some sharpening here so I can see, and this is to check that the image is actually sharp before I go through all the other steps. I then apply some noise reduction. The image was a little bit noisy, and then I add a linear gradient, and this brightens up the bottom of the image there because the sun had just gone behind a cloud. So you can see there we've made that difference of brightening up the bottom of the scene. I then change the blacks and the whites just to bring out some of the contrast in the light in there. Then make some colour changes to the greens and the yellows, and also the blue. There was some very nice blue colour reflecting in the river as it went up towards the viaduct. And then another linear gradient, and this time I changed the dehaze setting and move that to the left, and that balances out that takes away that haze at the top of the image and brings out some of that detail, particularly around the viaduct. And finally I just changed the leveling of the image. I felt it was slightly out, so I just changed that to make the railway viaduct a little bit more level. And there we have it, the finished article, job done. So it went from flat image, very flat, low contrast, to a nice colourful processed image. And if we zoom in, we can see we've got quite a bit of detail now showing in this image. Okay, now as a bit of a more of a comparison to see how the image came out, I did a couple of prints of the image. So we've got an original one now, and I know it's hard to see on a YouTube video this result, but it actually produces quite a nice print, and it's quite detailed for a 12 megapixel sensor, which is what's on the DJI drone. It doesn't do a bad job at all. And then I also did another image that was a crop as well. I just felt that image, that crop looked better than the first one. Well, they're both okay actually. So yeah, that very much, I'm really pleased with that result, considering it's, as I've said, it's that size sensor. That's a very usable picture. You won't be able to blow it up probably any more than A4. It's certainly not obviously as good as what you're going to get on a DSLR camera with the lens quality, but it's a very pleasing, usable picture. Happy with that. Now, another feature on the drone, it can take panoramic images, and it can take a series of 9 shots on a scene. Now, I did play around with this, but didn't really get good results. So I'm going to play around a little bit further, and then we'll look at that in a future video to see how that comes out. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Please consider subscribing to the channel, giving the video a like, sharing the video with somebody who might want to take pictures with their drone. And you know, this is just one method. I'm sure there's many others that's available out there. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's just one method to try. Right, I'll see you later.